And it just crossed my mind, my heart. Man, look at that. Inflation. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Free. I'm Ryan. I'm the pastor and executive director here. This is Noelle. She's the community director here. So good to be with you all tonight in this lively bunch of people. Welcome to all of you online joining us. So good to have you with us tonight as well. We're glad you're part of this community, wherever you're joining us from, Facebook or YouTube. We're glad you're here.
Man, they must have had some wagon coffee before
You know,
service.
they are caffeinated
are
up tonight. They did not do the decaf.
Absolutely. I like
All right, y'all,
style.
this is a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And what we do here is break the silence of addiction and create space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. And on the count of three, y'all are going to remind me what we don't do. 1, 2, 3. We don't do shame. But I do want to share this with y'all.
You got me a trophy.
I did not get you a trophy.
Oh.
This is something else. Well, it is a trophy. Our free softball team, they were awarded today. Well, they got third place. And
Look at that group of
I'm told
good-looking people.
Yeah, look at them.
Oh.
Third place in a lower division, but we don't do shame. They're working their way up. So that's the third place trophy. But what is way more impressive than that is it was a league vote. Everyone votes on like the team that lives out the values of serenity the most. They were given the Serenity Award today. How about that, free softball team? So cool. Brandon Nelson was leading our team this year for the last couple of years. Thank you so much, Brandon, for your leadership, leading the way in serenity. So proud of y'all. So we're going to put this somewhere, somewhere in free with the other trophy from last year.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, we were on that team like 4 years ago, and we certainly didn't win any trophies.
We didn't win trophies that year.
No,
It's because
we
we
didn't
were on
win
it.
any Serenity trophies either, so I don't know what that says about us, but you all pray for us.
All right, Noelle, what's coming up that they should know about?
Hey, if tonight is your first night here, welcome. We are so glad you are here. Right outside the store in these white bags, we have welcome bags here. And it has a little bit about what we do here at Free Spiritual Community, a little bit about what Wagon Coffee does. There's some fresh roasted Wagon Coffee, and then just some information, some swag for free. So please grab one on your way out the door and just know that we're so grateful that you're here with us. Hey, we have a ton of new merchandise that is available in our cafe here. We have new hats. Yeah, we can definitely give it up for that. We also have new hats just with our regular logo. And if these F-fentanyl shirts aren't quite your style, then we have a ton of new free merchandise coming in over the next couple weeks. So those guys are $25, and then our hats are $25. Our mugs are $15, as always. And so please pick some up. 100% of the proceeds for our merchandise go towards our mission of breaking the silence of addiction. So please support our cause. So the reason that we have these F-fentanyl shirts is because the latter part of August 19th and 26th, 2 back-to-back Saturdays, we are doing an F-fentanyl series. So the first week, August 19th, it's going to be all about awareness, and gosh, it's going to be a great time.
We have a great panel.
Yep, absolutely. So if y'all have never been to a panel for free, a panel discussion, we will have no service that week. It's not a 5 p.m. service and a 7 p.m. service. We are having a 7 o'clock panel discussion. So Reverend Ryan, he always moderates these for us. And we're going to have Eric Kellogg, who's a commander at Arvada Police. We have Keith Hayes, who's the director of 5280 High Schools. Sarah Hornbuckle with the Hornbuckle Foundation. And then we have a professor of behavioral sciences from DU. So it's going to be a great panel and really hammering in on this fentanyl epidemic that we're going through right now.
It's a needed thing. And we have other things going on that evening as well.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a hopping evening.
Yep. So from 5 to 7, we have a food truck. So the first 100 people to get on site, they get free food. And then you're able to purchase it after, the first 100 people. From 5:30 to 6:15 in this room, we are going to be having Narcan training. And so a certified Narcan, Brenda's going to be here and doing that for us. There's going to be a ton of sober vendors in our cafe space. That's going to be a great night. The week after is going to be equally as great. It's going to be a little bit more reflective, though. We're going to have Connie, who lost her daughter last summer, Hannah, to a fentanyl overdose. She's going to be our guest storyteller. So that week, the 26th, we're going to go back to our 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. service, but we're going to do a little bit more of a candlelight service and honoring those who are affected by this.
And we have actually a couple of people sharing their stories as well. It's going to be kind of an evening of stories and reflection.
Yep. And there's also going to be, well, I don't know. I don't know if we should tell them, but.
Should we tell them what?
About the signs.
Oh, yeah. No, let's save that. We're going to save that.
There's.
You just got to come and find out.
So we're awareness to a reflective evening, but those are the last 2 weeks of August. So please join us, grab some merchandise, and support the cause.
Yes. Thank you, Noelle. Absolutely. It's going to be a great series. That's last 2 weeks in August. Hey, one more thing I want to mention. Over the last few weeks, we've worked on putting together a survey. So tomorrow, at some point in the day, I will send this survey out to everyone that's on our email list. If you're not on the email list, it's a good time to get on the email list. We want to know who's coming, why you're part of this thing called Free. We want to know how we can do a better job here at Free. And this also helps with our grant writing to be able to talk about our demographics, the people we're serving. So when I send the email out tomorrow with the survey, this survey should take about 10 minutes to complete. I would really, really appreciate it if you could take the 10 minutes to complete this survey, actually open the email and click on the link and take the survey. And like I said, if you're not on the email, now's a good time to get on the email so you can help take this survey and help us do a better and know who you are and all the things that happen to be important. So thank you for being a part of that. Now, the way we get started here at Free is with celebrations. We start with the good. We lift up the good. We remember the good. So we take 3 minutes, a very important part of our time together. Maybe you're celebrating a sobriety anniversary or a birthday or a marriage anniversary or a new baby, new job, new home, whatever it is. We want to celebrate it with you. We believe God joins with us in the celebrations. If you're online, take this 3 minutes and you can drop it in the YouTube or Facebook comments. Austin, who is our guest storyteller tonight, I can't wait for y'all to hear from Austin. Austin will pass a mic and Jess will pass a mic. They are fiancéed together. You'll hear more about that too. But let's take 3 minutes, just raise up your hand and let's celebrate together.
I'm Kai and I have 141 days free of fentanyl.
All right, Kai.
I'm Amanda and I have 31 days sober today.
All right, congratulations.
Hi, I'm Carrie, and we celebrated 2 granddaughters' birthday and my dad's birthday this week.
Good stuff.
I'm Dominic, and we are celebrating our good friend Nate's 32 days sober, as well as my 30 days sober.
All right, congratulations.
I'm Chase, so I'm celebrating 11 months sobriety yesterday.
Way to go, Chase.
Hi, I'm Abby, and on Thursday, I found out that I won the Charles Schwab Make a Difference Award.
You make a difference, Abby. Congratulations.
Hi, my name is Amber. I have 17 days sober today.
Way to go, Amber. Glad you're here. Congratulations.
Hey, my name is Chris, and today celebrating my son AJ's 18th birthday, and I just love him with all my heart.
Happy birthday, AJ. Thank you for sharing that, Chris.
My name is Riley, and my dad's getting out of the hospital on Thursday.
Yes. Dad's getting out of the hospital Thursday.
Good evening, family. Monty C. It's my pleasure to give my friend Mary her 1-year coin.
Way to go, Mary. What a beautiful moment.
I'm Amber and I am 33 days sober today.
Way to go, Amber. Glad you're here.
I'm Chelsea and I'm 30 days sober off fentanyl today.
All right, way to go, Chelsea.
I'm Jay. It's my first time here. I got 45 days off pills. By the grace of God, I'm here. Thank you.
Jay, glad you're here, brother. Congratulations, buddy.
I'm Allison and I'm really excited to be on a new spiritual journey.
All right, Allison, congratulations.
I'm Kayla, and I'm 43 days sober today, and I just moved into a sober living house.
All right, way to go, Kayla. Glad you're here. Staying on the wagon.
I'm Ray. I'm 28 days.
Way to go, Ray. Congratulations, buddy.
Hey, I'm Mikal, and I'll start a new job up in Washington State in like 4 days.
Mikal. Good luck, buddy. Thanks for helping on the tech team, too.
We have friends, Ryan and Tammy, whose daughter just turned 13 years old. Selah, stand
birthday,
up and wave to
Selah.
the crowd.
Thank you, Matt. We got a teenager in the house. Oh, is that done? Are we done? That was it. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Austin. All right. Well, we get to celebrate together Tammy Canaday.
You took mine. Last service I said, I don't know if it's a prayer, like if I should say it for heartaches or celebrate that you're 13, but I think we'll celebrate.
Isn't it kind of weird to say we've got a teenager?
I
Like,
know.
we're not that old. I mean, we are that old, but we don't,
Oh.
All right. Well, we're getting older, and we get to celebrate with our online people. Look at this.
Yeah, Tawny, 172 days sober today.
Way to go, Tawny. So proud of you.
I see the parents smiling over there. That's a big deal, Ton.
Justin Thomas says, miss you guys. I'm grateful I can tune in to join y'all from somewhere in Arkansas. Traveling for work, celebrating 162 days of sobriety. Way to go, Justin. Enjoy Arkansas, man. Beautiful part of the country. I guess that's it. Short online celebrations tonight. Well, thank you for joining me up here. All right, y'all. So some of you know we finished our 4-week series last week. It was on breaking the silence of addiction. So we have like these 2 one-off weeks before our fentanyl series. And so this is like, I don't know, pastor's choice. I get to pick whatever I want to talk about. So I thought, what a great time to talk about the very exciting subject of hell. Let's talk about hell, shall we? Here's a little video. So this woman had fought a very long, painful illness, and she died. And when she died, she arrived up to the pearly gates of heaven. And she's peeking in the gate. She's looking all around, checking the place out. And then St. Peter approaches her. And she says to St. Peter, I mean, it's just so beautiful in there. How do I get in? And he says, oh, it's really simple. All you have to do is spell a word correctly. And she says, great. Well, which word? And he says, love. So she spells love, L-O-V-E. And he welcomes her into the heavens. Now, a few months go by, and St. Peter approaches this lady again, and he says, listen, I've got to leave for the afternoon, and while I'm away, can you tend the gates of heaven? And she says, sure. And on that particular day, her husband arrived to the gates of heaven. And she says, oh my goodness, it's so good to see you. How have you been? And he says, it's just been so good since you've died. Like, do you remember the young, beautiful nurse who tended your bedside? Well, after you died, she got married. And then he said, you're not going to believe it. We hit the lottery. I mean, literally, we hit the lottery. So do you remember that old, small house we had? We just leveled that thing, and in its place, we built a big, beautiful mansion where we currently live. And it just gets better. We've been traveling the world together, seeing everything we ever wanted to see. And, well, yesterday we were skiing the Swiss Alps together, and I was going really fast down the hill, and I went through the trees, and I hit a tree, and, well, here I am. And he's looking inside the gates, and he says, it's just so beautiful in there. How do I get in? And she says, it's really simple. All you have to do is spell a word correctly. And he says, well, great. Which word? And she looks at him and says, Czechoslovakia. Now, at the end of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, which, by the way, is the bread and butter of his teachings, it's found in Matthew's Gospel, chapters 5, 6, and 7. You could read the whole sermon in about 18 minutes. Highly recommend it. Towards the end of the sermon, Jesus drops these lines. Check it out. Go in through the narrow gate. The gate that leads to destruction is broad and the road wide. So many people enter it, But the gate that leads to life is narrow and the road difficult. So few people find it. Now, in my experience, when religious people get to talking about this passage about going through the narrow gate, so often the discussion turns towards life after this life, life after death. So often the discussion becomes about who gets in and how to get in. Now, the problem with so many of our biblical passages is we can read them in such a way that makes them all about insiders and outsiders, who God is going to let in and who God is going to keep out. And it just so happens that whatever group is reading this particular passage, they always see themselves as who? The insiders. We're the insiders. We have the right way, the right answers. You all are the outsiders. So back when I was in high school, back in that high school youth group that I was raised in, many of y'all know I was born and raised in a conservative evangelical tradition of the Midwest. In high school with this youth group, we'd often go on these mission trips, which, if we're honest, were more like evangelism trips. I mean, yes, of course, the goal was to go and be nice to people and do some good deeds, but the real overarching goal, if we were honest, was to convert people. Because we were the insiders, they were the outsiders. We had the right way, the answers. You just got to listen to us, and we're going to tell you how, when you die, you don't have to. God's not going to send you to the fiery pits of hell where you're going to suffer forever. But if you just simply pray this prayer and invite Jesus into your heart, then when you die, God won't send you down below, but God will send you to heaven where life is good. Now, as a 15 or 16-year-old, I became used to rejection. Part of my life in evangelism. And I remember one of these particularly difficult rejection moments. And afterwards, I talked to the youth leader, and I'll never forget what he said to me when I explained the story to him. He said, well, narrow is the gate. Narrow is the gate. What passage was he referring to? Yeah, the one we just read. Narrow is the gate. He said, Ryan, some people are never going to listen. Even though we have the answers, we have the right way, they're never going to listen because their heart is hardened. And when they die, they're going to suffer forever and ever and ever in the fiery pits of hell. Here's a popular image from my childhood. Yeah, seriously, this is a painting. And I'm willing to bet it still hangs on the walls of many churches still today. Now, look at this image for a moment. And what does it say? I mean, it says a lot of things, doesn't it? It says this place is bad. This world. You get a little Las Vegas in there, maybe. A bit of Denver. I mean, it's bad. God's going to destroy it all anyway, so it doesn't really matter in the end. God's going to destroy it. Oh, but thank God, Jesus made a way. Made a way for us to get into where? That big, bright, walled-off city. Notice how to get in? Yeah, notice that narrow gate. Yeah, the arrows are pointing people to go down to the fiery pits. You know, and if you have any sort of heart at all, I mean, you can't help but think, what about all the lemmings that are falling off the cliff? I mean, this image is all about insiders and outsiders and how to get in, enforcing the idea that Jesus, the cross, is all about escaping this life to get to some better life, escaping this world to get to another world. But what about all the people falling off? What about all the people going into the flames? And then what happens in some branches of the faith, the religious leaders have the audacity to try to convince you that this is actually the good news. This is good news. You're like, really? Good news? Listen, if your spiritual goal is to escape this life and get to some other life, escape this world and get to some other world, then you're not really free, are you? You know, about midway through college, I started asking some questions. Because you know how it is, we ask questions. And I was like, wait a minute. What about all those people who happen to be born in Thailand? I mean, is it that they're not born in America, so they are a good chance they're not going to be part of the Christian tradition? If you're born in Thailand, you're most likely going to be part of what? The Buddhist tradition or some other tradition, or maybe no tradition at all. And God's just gonna, like, when they die, God's gonna send them to a place of suffering and fire forever and ever and ever? Seriously? And then, man, what about like Mahatma Gandhi? I mean, Gandhi, he lived a lot like Jesus taught us to live, maybe closer to Jesus than many of his followers. And you mean because he doesn't have the my head system, my belief system, our belief system in the West, you mean when he dies, God's going to send him to a place of torment and suffering forever and ever and ever? And listen, y'all, I know many of you in this room, you have religious baggage, some things you grew up with, some things that you were born and raised into, ideas and belief systems that you were indoctrinated with, and you can recognize this baggage, you can see it, and it still doesn't disappear overnight, does it? For some of you, it takes years to work through and to actually drop this baggage. You know, 13 years ago this week, I became a pops for the first time. And I can tell you moments of holding my baby girl and having these very internal conversations with myself. Like, man, is there anything you could ever do? Is there anything bad enough you could do to get me so angry that I'm going to send you away, not for redemptive punishment, not a timeout, but I'm going to send you to a dark closet forever and ever and ever, a place where you are separated from me and everything meaningful you are going to suffer. And yet we read in the scriptures so many metaphors for God as being a good parent. We have texts that describe God as a good father, a good mother, like a mother hen looking over the city. And yet you want me to believe this parent would be 1,000 times harsher than any good parent we would describe here on earth? My brothers and sisters, scriptures and my experience lead me to a very core belief that God is always about redemptive love. If God can send God's children to a place of suffering and torment forever and ever, there is nothing redemptive about that God. There is nothing good about that God. You know what happens when I get into conversations with people and they start telling me about why they don't believe in God? And then they start describing this God to me. What usually happens is me saying to them, yeah, I don't believe in that God either. I mean, sometimes we need a new image of God. We need new visions of God. We need new reimaginings of God. But let's break it down a little bit. Let's go a little deeper into history, and I want you all to stick with me because I think you will find it absolutely fascinating. Now, the word hell is used in the New Testament scriptures roughly 12 times, almost exclusively by Jesus himself. And keep in mind, the New Testament is written in Greek. We have English translations. The Greek word hell in English is this word Gehenna. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? What does that mean? Gehenna was actually a real place. It was a real, literal place in the first century. It was an actual valley resting on the southwest side of the city of Jerusalem. You can still see this valley today. In fact, if you go to the Holy Land with me in April, you will stand over the city of Jerusalem and you will be able to see the valley of Gehenna. Now, in the first century, the world in which Jesus was speaking and breathing and living and doing his work, in the first century, the valley of Gehenna was like the first century dump. It was a trash heap. It's where people took their garbage, a literal trash heap. Texts describe the valley of Gehenna as an everlasting fire, a constant fire to consume the trash. Get this, other texts describe it as there were wild dogs that would come into the valley and they would begin fighting over food scraps, and it was described the sound of the gnashing of teeth. Ever heard that phrase before? Yeah, that comes from somewhere. So for Jesus' followers, hell was an actual place. When Jesus started talking about hell, all his listeners, they would have said, oh yeah, we know exactly where that is. It's right over there. It's the trash heap. It's the city dump. And for Jesus, you could always choose this place. You could always choose a life separated from everything good and meaningful. You could always choose a life separated from God. And of course, Some people did. Some people do. I don't have to tell y'all, we have 1,000 different ways we can live in separation from God, don't we? Now, the central question in Matthew's gospel is, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And what has happened with that is some branches of the Christian faith have come along and they said, yeah, eternal life. It's all about what happens when you die. It's where you go after you die. And that is not at all what Jesus was talking about. When Jesus dropped the phrase eternal life, that comes from somewhere. We don't have time to go into all the Greek of that, but Jesus was always talking about life right here, right now, the best kind of life that God is always offering to us. So it was another way of asking Jesus, what must I do to inherit the best kind of life, the life you say that God is always offering us? How do we get that? And keep in mind, in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, what's he say? He gives us ways to do this. What's he say? Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. Walk in the way of forgiveness. Do not become that which you oppose. And as he's saying this, you can almost hear the crowds responding to him. But Jesus, we hear what you're saying. But man, we're so tired of being trampled on by the Roman Empire, the most powerful empire the world has ever seen. We're tired of being trampled on by them. Jesus, they've taken everything from us. They've made our lives miserable. Jesus, you know what we want you to do? We want you to get them back. We want you to make them suffer, not just the way we have suffered, but worse. Jesus, we want you to send them to the valley of Gehenna, send them to hell, the place where there is a constant fire, the place where there is suffering and gnashing of teeth. That's what we want you to do, Jesus. And you can hear Jesus respond. No. You want real life? You want real life? You must go through the narrow gate. What? What does that even mean? Go through the narrow gate. Well, that comes from somewhere. So check this out. Very important part of history. The ancient city of Jerash is in Jordan. Again, if you go to the Holy Land with me in April, you're going to go to the ancient city of Jerash. It is considered by archaeologists the best preserved ancient Greco-Roman city in the world. Here's a picture of the gates going into the ancient city of Jerash. By the way, these gates, or similar to them, would be at nearly every ancient Greco-Roman city. This particular gate was built in the 2nd century. It was built to welcome in the Roman Emperor Hadrian. And here's how it worked. You would have 2 double doors and that broad center gate. And when the Roman emperor would come rolling into your city, the doors would fling wide open and the emperor would come in, followed by his armies of people, followed by massive amounts of people. And when they would walk in, many would start bowing down to the emperor. And you notice the narrow gates to the side. What is Jesus saying? And keep in mind, he would always use images that are relatable to his people. What's he saying? Don't go the way of the empire. I know you want to get them back. I know you want to see them suffer. Don't become that which you are opposed to. And by all means, I know some of y'all are tempted to join them and be like them. Don't do it. Go through the narrow gate. You want real life? That kind of eternal life? Choose the other way. Choose the other gate. Remember who you are. Remember who you are called to be in this world. In fact, it's how he starts his Sermon on the Mount. Do you remember it? He says things like, blessed are the hopeless. Blessed are the humble. Blessed are the peacemakers. Narrow is the gate. What was he doing with this sermon? He was giving them a choice. You can choose the broad gate. You can walk that way, but it is the way of destruction. It leads to the valley of Gehenna. Or you could choose a different way. You could choose a different gate, the narrow gate. And still today we are given this same choice, aren't we? We can choose the path of destruction. We can choose the gates of hell. Many of us have done quite a good job in doing that. Or we can choose a different path, a different gate, a better way, a life that is not separated from everything good and meaningful, a life that is not separated from God. But here's what you have to remember: God is never going to force you to choose the good path. God is not a tyrant. He is not going to force you to choose that. You get a choice because you actually have free will in the world, which means you are capable of tremendous amounts of good and you are capable of walking the path of destruction. If I were to ask you, do you believe in hell? Many of you, maybe not all of you, I don't want to make too big of an assumption, but many of you would tell me, many of you in this room, many of you watching online, you would reject the notion of it being an eternal place of torment and suffering where God sends some people. And once you get down there, you are greeted by a little red guy with horns coming out of his head and a little pitchfork. But also you would tell me with a great deal of clarity, I've been there. I've been there. It's why we say religion is for people who fear hell. Spirituality is for people who've been there. Because let's be honest, you lived it, right? I mean, you've been to hell. You were there in the darkness of your addiction, separated from everything good and meaningful, living a life separated from God. But it's not because God sent you there. No, God is good. God is love. But your addiction sent you there. Do you remember that hell or the hell of watching your loved one be in hell? Yeah, do you remember the separation, the fear? Man, the creating chaos in your life, hurting the ones you love most and not being able to understand why you do it. And then making all those promises. Honey, I swear to you, I'm not going to drink tonight. I'm totally done. I'm not going to pick up a drug. I'm done. It's taken everything from me. And then later that night, you're picking it up again. And you're like, how in the hell did I get here? How is this happening? You know, it's why my friend Matt often shares, recovery didn't open the gates of heaven and let me in. Recovery opened the gates of hell and let me out. Is it true? I'll close with this. Last week, I received a text message from a dear brother in this community. He's fallen off the wagon. And man, they all suck, don't they? Every time someone falls, they all suck. But what made this one a bit more sucky was, man, he was coming for months and you could see his life changing. I mean, you could see light coming back in his eyes. I mean, it was so tangible. You could see it, you could feel it. He'd get here early on Saturdays, often before I even got here, and he'd get here early, and I'd walk in and he'd say, Pastor, what do you want me to do? Where can I serve? Where do you need help? And he would stand at the front doors, and he would greet people, and he would give people a hug, and something about when that man hugged you, you felt the joy that had been restored and renewed in him. There was something so genuine about it. And for whatever reason on that day, it seemed like the best option, perhaps the only option, to pick up the drugs again. And so last week I called him just to let him know. I left him a voicemail. He did not answer. But I let him know how much we missed him here, how much he is loved in this community, like genuinely missed. And he did not answer. He did not call me back, but he did text me back. And he texted me 3 very simple, true, and heartbreaking words. He said, I'm in hell. And I don't even have to explain that, do I? Y'all know exactly what he means. I'm in hell. You see, he knows hell. He's there right now. Which means we don't have to go to all those stoop down, all the fear tactics of, well, if you don't straighten up, if you don't have the right beliefs up here, you know, if you die in this relapse, God's going to punish you forever and ever and ever. Y'all, that's not God, that's fear. And he's there right now. And relapse, we have to remember, will always send you back. It always leads to the path towards Gehenna, the city dump, the trash heap with constant fire and the sounds of the gnashing of teeth. And yet, we don't do shame. We don't do shame. God doesn't do shame because God always acts in love and grace and redemptive love, waiting patiently for us to come home, the place where we are in connection with ourselves, others, God. Some of us might even call this place heaven. And don't act so surprised. We pray this all the time. It's been prayed for centuries, in fact. What does the Lord's Prayer say? Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth, right here, right now, as it is in heaven. Heaven coming to earth. And in that grace, we are always invited into the question, and it is not a one-time thing. It's a daily thing. It's a daily reprieve. And that question that we are being asked is, which gate will you choose to walk through today? So here's what we're going to do. My daughter has introduced me to the rap artist Juice WRLD. Yeah, she got me into Juice WRLD. We roll the windows down, turn it up, we sing the Juice WRLD. And for months she's been saying, Poppy, you have to play this song. This is such a free song. You have to play this a free one Saturday. And okay, baby, we will. Tonight we're going to play Juice WRLD's Wishing Well. It's actually got some really profound lyrics in it. And so maybe you just want to sit and reflect. I would invite you to stay in just a moment of quiet. And if you have someone in your life who's in hell, maybe that's you, disconnected from everything meaningful, everything good, living apart from God. If you have someone you love that's in hell, or it's you, or we have these candles up here, I would invite you to light a candle. Say a prayer for that person. Say a prayer for you. And if you want to just sit and reflect, you can do that too. This time is yours. You know, Juice World was one of us. He actually died of a drug overdose in 2019. But yeah, R.I.P. Juice World. My daughter would join you in that. 999. All right, y'all. Hey, if you're new with us every Saturday night, you should know that we have a guest storyteller who joins me up in the living room to share some of their experience on the topic at hand. And so I can't wait for you to. Many of you know Austin. He's part of this community. He's on our home team. Jess is part of this community. Austin, let's talk about hell, shall we? Yes, let's do this, brother. I'm glad you're here. Get your mic. All right, Austin, your mom and dad are joining us online, right?
Yeah, they are. They'll be watching. Hi,
Hello,
Mom and Dad.
Glad you're with us tonight. And I know they play a big role in your story, but let's start in your story with, what was hell like? And I know it started for you at an early age.
Yeah.
And hell kept getting worse for you as time progressed. Tell us what it was like.
Yeah, for me, I think I was on the road towards hell a long time before I realized where I was headed. I had addict characteristics from the time that I started.
Hold the mic up. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I was doing drugs addictively from the time that I was, like 16 years old. I think by the time I was 17, I'd been selling coke for a little while, partying pretty much constantly. And by the time that I was, graduated with high school, I made it into college, surprisingly, but I dropped out because I partied too much. And then moving forward, I ended up in a relationship with a toxic person, and I got introduced during that time to not cocaine anymore, but crack cocaine, which was just a totally different ballgame for me. And, throughout the process of, lying, stealing, cheating, doing everything that I had to do for that drug, I started to lose friends. I started to lose, contact with my family. And one night after, it was a 3 or 4 day bender. It was one of those mornings where you haven't slept, but the sun's coming up. You hear the birds chirping, and I was out of drugs. I was out of money, and I felt like I had been running from emotions for that entire bender, and everything that I had been running from came up and caught me in that moment, and it hit me like a tidal wave. And something about it just made me realize that I needed to reach out and look for help somewhere. It's like I called my dad, and I asked for help, and I think that was the beginning of my journey of relying upon other people to try to get me healthy. And I think that's kind of the starting point.
Yeah,
hell
and what you describe is that relying on other people wasn't enough.
No,
because you went deeper into the fiery pits of hell with what we might call chronic relapse.
Right. So yeah, I called my dad. He got me hooked up with a rehab. I went to Sandstone, and that's where I got sober for the first time. When I was done with that program, I was super confident. I learned all this stuff about myself and about what addiction was and everything. And I walked out of there and I was so confident. I was so confident that this was the end of that chapter of my life. I was closing the book. And I knew that I wasn't going to go out and I wasn't going to use. You could have hooked me up to a polygraph machine and I would have told you, yeah, no, It's over, it's done. I'm going to be clean now.
But you forgot it was cunning, baffling, and powerful.
But yeah, I walked out without any intention, and I ended up relapsing. And I started a cycle. I would call my dad and I'd be like, hey, it happened again. What are you going to do for me now? What new rehab are we going to try? What, new free program are we going to try? 12-step, Dharma recovery, whatever it was. And by this time I had been introduced to AA, and I tried the program. But there was like this inherent block in me towards spirituality, which it's a spiritual program. So, it didn't work for me. And I think the reason for that was because I had always equated spirituality with religion. And for me, religion had always seemed like, it was for people who weren't, strong enough to make their own path. It was for people who needed to be told how to live life and weren't able to, figure it out for themselves. It was for like sheep, is the way that I thought about it. And spirituality was the same thing in my mind. And I had no idea that it wasn't.
So you just keep going to rehabs and keep getting out and keep saying no to the spiritual path.
Right.
You said you'd go into rehab, and then days later you would be locked and loaded in a hotel room, burning my fingertips off with a crack pipe.
Yeah.
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 Now, I mean, we could very realistically call that's hell. That's hell.
Yeah, I think for me, hell really embodied itself. I had been in this cycle for a little while, and part of me thought that, as long as I have my parents to fall back on, I had my fiance at the time to love me when I couldn't love myself, and as long as I had those things, and I didn't ever think they would go away, that I would be all right, no matter what I did, no matter how many times I relapsed. And I got to a point where, the burden of loving me, because that's what it was, loving me was just pain for everybody that I cared about, got to be so much that, my fiance left me. My friends didn't want anything to do with me. My parents had gotten to the point where they were without hope that I would find my way to the other side of this problem. I remember it was my very last relapse. I spent 10 or 11 days. This was after Jess, my fiance, had left me. My mom said that she was tired of the way that I was. I was being selfish and I was taking advantage of them, and all true things. But I sat in a hotel room by myself, just smoking as much cocaine as I could for 10, 12 days without sleeping. And every hit that I took, I was hoping it would kill me. And the whole time I was just angry with myself. I was angry with myself that I wouldn't kill myself, that I wasn't strong enough. And I was so alone because, I was disconnected with myself. I knew I couldn't trust the things that came out of my mouth, even if I believed them. And I was disconnected from God because I wouldn't let him in, and I was disconnected from all the people that mattered to me because I had pushed them away with my actions. I think that was hell because I had nothing that mattered to me.
Yeah.
All I had was this clear little pipe.
So when did recovery come along and open the gates of hell to let you out?
So I think it was right around that point where I found my first version of God. It's like I was so closed off to the idea of spirituality and God that when I got so far down in the depths that I finally found what some people in the rooms talk about as the gift of desperation, G-O-D, it's God. And in that gift of desperation, it was 11 days in. If I hadn't run out of money, I would have died. But I drove to my dad's house. I crashed on his couch that night. I knew he didn't really want me there. But he let me stay, and I had to sit there with the knowledge that, it's either I continue down this path to misery or death, or I figure out some other way. And I was so desperate at that point to stop hurting the people around me that I decided that spirituality was something that I was open to. I pulled down my barriers that I had, and something about that sat so well with me because the next day, I don't know what it was that guided me to it, but I drove out to Sparrow. It's a recovery center that I had been to, and I'd been to 10, but something about that one spoke to me. And I showed up there for an open meeting, and I found my sponsor who's sponsoring me today. And for the first time ever, I was open and willing to taking the suggestions that I was given. And I don't think if I had pulled down those barriers and let God in, that I'd be sitting here today.
Yeah.
So
thank God you are, man. I'm glad you went to Sparrow.
Yeah, me too. It's the place.
And he was here. Your sponsor was here last service. He's part of this community. Dude, you got a good one.
He's a
You got
solid
good
dude.
one.
He's a good man.
What so talk to us about heaven. How do you describe heaven?
Heaven always seemed kind of intangible to me, I
Yeah.
think. You know, it was not until recently that I realized that heaven is something that starts to show up as the promises in the book become, in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, come true. You know, today I have a reliable car that I drive. I have a beautiful fiance. You know, I get to stand up here and try to tell my story to help somebody else out of the pits of hell. You know, I have a sponsee that I get to show the way, and I get to see the lights come on in his eyes as he starts to figure out that this isn't the only way, and he doesn't have to die miserable.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's what heaven is for me. Is it's that I get to show up in a way that matters today.
Yeah.
You know,
What a
my
beautiful
parents
thing.
get to see me as their son again.
Yeah.
You know?
They get to
Yeah.
watch you tonight and be proud of you, man.
Yeah.
Dude, so in closing, Austin, tell us for someone who's here tonight or someone online sitting in their living room tonight watching all alone, they got the laptop on their lap, they're watching, but they're in hell. They're stuck in the grips of hell. What word of encouragement would you offer to them?
Well, I think for it to really feel like hell, for it to really be a hell that you're sitting in, it has to feel like it's never going to end. You know, it has to feel like this is forever and there's no way out, and there's no hope left.
Yeah.
So for me, the only thing that brought me out of that hell was accepting and understanding and coming to terms with the fact that there is another way, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and there's another option. So life goes on.
Yeah,
is the
that's
thing.
a good word, brother.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Austin Browning. He's going to be hanging out if you want to talk to him. Thank you, brother. Love you, dude. I appreciate it. Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you, Austin. All right, y'all. The way we close things here at Free on a Saturday night is very similar to the way we begin. We begin with celebrations, and we end with the heartaches. The things that we try to carry around throughout the week, the things that we try to carry around on our own, that we really suck at doing on our own. So it's why we have community. So we take 3 minutes, a very important part of our time together, to share the heartaches. If you're carrying a burden, a heartache that you need prayer for, encouragement for, you need community for, well, just raise up your hand, and Austin and Darren will bring you a mic. I'll give that one to you. Yeah, we have a God who always hears the cries of his people. So this is your time, 3 minutes, to lift up, express the heartaches. Let's take 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Amanda. My Aunt Nancy was diagnosed with breast cancer, so I'd like you all to pray for her.
All right, Amanda, prayers for your aunt.
My name is Derek. I just want to lift up my father who's still out there on fentanyl and meth. I want to lift up Hallie, who has a double vasectomy in a couple weeks, that goes well. And then lifting up a family. A friend of mine from high school, Sam, was getting this, and one use took his life last week. So.
Oh, man. Prayers for them and your dad and Hallie.
My name's Riley, and my grandpa's dog died last week.
All right, we're praying for your grandpa.
I want to have a prayer for my father and my brother who are in hell, basically, and hoping there's a way out, another way.
Lifting up your family, man. Prayers for them. Glad you're here tonight.
I want to say a prayer for my dad. My grandma just passed away, and he's really struggling out in New Mexico by himself.
All right, praying for your dad tonight. Surround him with grace and peace.
I was just hoping that we could lift up Calvin, who was part of our home team and is in hell right now, and is no longer responding or answering any of our texts. Just that he knows that he's loved, and he can come through the narrow gate.
Thank you for that, Abby. Yeah, let's pray for Calvin.
I am Dominic, and I would really appreciate some prayers for my mother, Ashley, who is still currently suffering from her addiction to fentanyl and alcohol.
Prayers for your mom, lifting her up. Glad you're here tonight.
Yeah, I'm Austin. I just want to lift up my cousin, Matt, who he is in hell right now, and he left behind his wife and his 3 kids, and he's out on a bender right now. But just prayers for him.
All right, lifting up your cousin Matt. Got one more in the back.
I'd like to offer prayers for your friend who's stuck in hell right now. Know there's a way out, and anyone else who's there, you can make that choice.
Yeah. Thank you for that, brother. Prayers for all of those who have fallen off the wagon. I should say a word about the wagon in a moment. Matt, you going to join me up here first, though? I don't see why not either, man. I like that new hat you got. Did you get that out there out front?
It's free.
It's free for $25.
I mean, it's for $25. Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm. Matt, I'm glad you're here. We're going to join our online people and heartache with them. So you take the first one, then I'll take the second one. And we'll go back and forth.
Kelly Harris says, F fentanyl. Please pray for my son who overdosed on fentanyl the other day and had to be Narcan by his girlfriend. I love him, and I don't want to see him die. I think we all feel that same way. Prayers goes to you, Cal.
Yeah. Levon. A friend and brother Levon says, wrecked my bike, had surgery, missing a lot right now, but staying positive and can't wait to continue moving forward. Love you, Levon. Glad you're here tonight. Well, not here, but here. And prayers for you, brother.
Carrie Ann Belford says, please keep my mother in your prayers for yet another eye surgery August 16th. She ultimately will be blind. Hopefully this next surgery will give her more time. Also, for one of my older sons, whose mental health battle has been so dark, especially of late. It's so hard to watch my child battle mental health, as I have for so long, praying for strength and guidance. Prayers to you, Carrie, and if we know mental illness, it's here in this community.
Yep. Absolutely, lifting you up. Stephen says, please pray for the family of Dr. Jim M. Lost his life on earth this past week. Please pray they find peace in this turbulent time. Thank you. Stephen, lifting up the family of Dr. Jim, praying for his family, lifting him up.
We're going to take one more. Toya Redbird says, can you please pray for my friend Dominic? He was in an accident. So prayers to Dominic, and that we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, all right. We got one more. Maureen Parker says, prayers for T and D. T&D, may God find them and guide them, keeping you all in my prayers too. All right, lifting them. You know what, Matt? If you want to stop, I'll just keep going, all right? Because there's another one. Justin Thomas. This is the last one. Justin Thomas.
Where's that mic? Praying
without ceasing is what you meant to say. Praying for Tower Dog, who had a stroke a couple of years ago. He has a lot of trouble with mobility. Praying for Calvin as well. Thank you, Justin. Glad you're part of this community, lifting them both up. Glad you're here. Thank you, Matt. Even though you quit on me early. Don't ever quit. Don't ever give up, man, especially in your recovery.
And don't forget, $25.
$25, that's right. Hey, so I do have 2 minutes left. Do you need your sandals? There you go. And I said I would say a word about the wagon because I haven't told the story of the wagon in a while. The wagon is the central image in this community. It has been since day one. In our backyard, we had a little wooden wagon. We sat against the tree, and here's the backstory behind it. A few years ago, I was at the LA Rescue Mission in Los Angeles, And the LA Rescue Mission is the largest rescue mission in the world. And we were taking a tour. The executive director took us to the top floor of pictures of all their memorabilia. And one of those central pictures was this one. That's the actual picture I took with my phone. And I sent it to the tech team and they put it up. It's how they got started in the late 1800s. This wagon would go at night, late at night, into the roughest parts of LA. And they would distribute things like food, clothing, Bibles, other items. And then at the end of the night, they would welcome anyone who wanted to get on the wagon and go to a place of recovery to jump on. Now, what happens when a bunch of drunk people get on a wagon? Some of them fall off, which was mind-blowing to me. Is that where that comes from? And so what was even more mind-blowing was what he said this wagon did when they fall off. When the drunks would fall off, the wagon would stop and the sober ones would jump off the wagon and help them back on because they knew where they were headed, a place of recovery. And when I heard that, man, that's like church at its best. That's who we are called to be. That's who we want to be here. Now, if you call this place home, if you have been impacted by the mission of breaking the silence of addiction, I want you to know that your generous giving is really appreciated here. We are funded by you, the people. It's one of the ways we do what we do here. So I want to remind you there's a giving box over here by this door. There's one outside these doors. Your generous giving helps keep the mission going. And I want to say this too. We had a very generous donor. This was 2 weeks ago. We launched this 2 weeks ago. He said, I want to give $25,000, but do you think the community could match it? And I said, well, let's see if we can match it. And so 2 weeks ago, we launched this thing where we told you we were looking for 250 people to give $100. And keep in mind, this is all for the reason of this Home at Last campaign that we are right in the middle of. We have the opportunity to buy this building to make it our permanent home. It appraised at $3.77 million. We're able to purchase it at $1.3 million all in. So this was 2 weeks ago. I told you about this $25,000 challenge gift. As of today, we have raised $14,000 towards that gift, which means we are over halfway there and we have 2 weeks to go. So if you want to be a $100 donor, maybe it's 50 this week and 50 next, or 25 and 75, however you want to do it. Or maybe your mom or dad wants to give, or maybe you're watching online and you know others who have been impacted by your life of being part of this community. This is open to all people. Let's do this thing. Let's do it. If you want to give online, there are 3 ways to give online. You can download the free Spiritual Community app. All of our content is on there, messages, guest storytellers. There's a giving button. If you want to give to the Home at Last campaign specifically, hit the drop-down menu and click on Home at Last. You can do the exact same thing on the website, freespiritualcommunity.com, or you can text the number on your screen, and it leads you through a very simple set of instructions, all safe, all secure. Your generous giving helps grow the mission of breaking the silence of addiction, and I hope you all see how important it is. Shall we go out with a prayer? I went from all this energy to down here. Austin and Jess, you want to come help me close? Because we didn't even get to introduce Jess. This is Austin's fiance. I get the great honor of marrying them in next June. It's going to be so much. June 9th? June 9th. Man, look what we get in sobriety, man. Recovery is good. God is good. All right, so I always invite people to just open their hands. It's a sign of openness. Open to God's moving, God's Spirit moving in us, breathing through us. God is as close to you as your breath. And if you don't know the Lord's Prayer, it'll be on your screen. It goes like this. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. So much grace and peace to you, my free brothers and sisters. We'll see you next time. Thank you.